Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Now, my next guest, Biyi Bandele, has become something of a household name in Nigeria and the UK. A celebrated novelist, playwright and filmmaker who writes books and drama for radio, television and film. He's known across the world for directing the epic movie Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which won the Orange Prize in 2007. It was adapted by Biyi Bandele and filmed with a cast led by Chiwetel Ejiofor and Tandy Newton. But since the movie premiered in 2014, Mr. Bandele has made several more, including 50, the MTV drama series Sugar, Nigerian Prince and other productions, and has become a well-known name in Nollywood, Nigeria's prolific film industry. He's just wrapped up filming in Lagos for his latest production, the film adaptation of Wole Soyinka's Death and The King's Horsemen. But it is arguably, at least for now, for his work on Half of a Yellow Sun that he is best known.
Doesn't deserve you, you know.
Leave my son alone. And
Happy Independence.
Thank you.
I just don't get what you see in these English boys. I applied for a job as a lecturer in the Department of Sociology and I got it.
A special woman is arriving this weekend. Very special.
Yes, sir.
My name is not Sir.
Yes, sir.
My sister's a revolutionary lover and his band of drinkers.
He did not tell us you were logically beautiful.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Let's get married.
The men in high.
It's happened. There's been a coup.
What's happening in Lagos?
This is our beginning.
Stay just a little longer. He doesn't deserve you, you know.
leave my son alone. And tell your fellow witches you did not see him.
The only authentic identity for an African is his tribe. I am a Nigerian because the white man gave me that identity.
Get out.
It meant nothing! Stay away from my house! Bring out your passports!
Where are you running to?
Mama, people are fleeing.
We're at war. I feel as if I have been dropped into something that I don't entirely understand.
You must never behave as if your life belongs to a man.
Oh, God. Our relationship is the most important thing to me. We have to make the right decision for us.
And that movie, of course, directed by Biyi Bandele. And I'm absolutely delighted to say that the novelist, playwright and filmmaker Biyi Bandele joins me now from our studios in Lagos. How brilliant to see you, Biyi. Your hair looks to have receded a little from the last time I saw you, but beyond that, you look pretty much... You look pretty much the same. I mean, the challenges of making movies in Nigeria clearly not getting to you, calm as ever. But thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's start by talking a little bit about Half of a Yellow Sun, the movie we just saw the trailer, which was a very, very ambitious project, and to date, still the biggest budget movie ever to come out of Nigeria. I understand it was cost about $10 million to make. How did it come about and what drew you to it?
What drew me to it was Chimamanda's great book. I read the book, I think, around 2005. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it, especially with the two central female characters, the twin sisters. And I had also, for a very long time, wanted to adapt Chinua Achebe's short story set during the Second World, during the Biafran War, Girls at War. And it turned out that Chimamanda's inspiration for Half of a Yellow Sun was was Achebe's short story. They used to be neighbors when she was a kid, the Achebes and Chimamanda's family, and so she knew Achebe quite well. And I fell in love with it. I had been trying to make my debut as a filmmaker for quite a while at the time, and it was almost impossible. Project after project didn't see the light of day, and Half a Year Listen took about 6 years to happen. It took a long time, partly because it was so expensive, and that combined with the fact that I insisted that I wanted to direct it, and it was very important to me that I directed. The very reason I became a filmmaker was because living in the UK, an African writer, screenwriter, I got to a point where I got quite fed up, really tired of seeing my work on screen, directed by other people, and wanting to hide under my seat because I didn't recognize it and because it was embarrassing. And so I decided, on the advice actually of a mentor friend of mine, Danny Boyle, the filmmaker who directed my first screenplay ever and did an amazing job of it. And Danny, after I came complaining to him for the third or fourth time about someone just making a total mess of what I'd written, said to me, well, direct it yourself, direct your next screenplay yourself. And I took his advice, but it took many years for that to happen, and that turned out to be Half a Year Listen.
Yes, I understand it took about almost 6 to 7 years to go from when you first started adapting it all the way to the screen, but that obviously that suggests the tenacity that you have to sort of make movies. And it was, as I said, a huge budget by Nigerian standards. But I mean, as you said, you were a first-time movie director taking on such a big project. I mean, were you afraid that you had all that money from investors riding on your shoulders? I mean, 10 million smackaroos is not it's not to be sniffed at.
And I was aware of the responsibility, but fear wasn't really an option. I felt prepared. I'd spent a long time actually schooling myself. I had done a degree in drama, and I felt quite prepared. Although once we got to Calabar and the enormity of what I'd taken on hit me, I proceeded with some caution, but I was working with a first-class, world-class crew. I had Chiwetel Ejiofor, who is one of the greatest actors of his generation. I had Tandy Newton, who is an amazing actor. I had John Boyega. I had an amazing team, and every morning when I got up to go to set, I just could not wait to get on set. It was a tough shoot. It was an incredibly tough shoot, but I would do it all over again at a drop of a hat. I mean, it was amazing.
Well, I have to say that we're very glad that you did it. But please stay with us. We're going to take a short break and we're going to come straight back and continue our chat with you. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with the novelist and playwright Biyi Bandele, who's now also one of the most prominent Nigerian international filmmakers. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Aniagolu. And my special guest today is the British Nigerian novelist and playwright Biyi Bandele, who's now also one of the most prominent Nigerian international filmmakers. He's won an impressive reputation after becoming the first ever Nigerian first-time director to make a movie with the biggest budget in Nigerian history, Half of a Yellow Sun, which he adapted for film from the novel by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. He's just wrapped up directing the Netflix and Ebony Life production of Wole Soyinka's Death and the King's Horsemen, which is a period piece set in 1940s colonial Nigeria. Death and the King's Horsemen was also adapted for the screen by Biyi Bandele, who, in addition to being a celebrated film director, is also one of the most prolific black authors in the UK. And Biyi Bandele is still with me from our studios in Lagos. Thank you for staying with us. We're going to talk about what you're doing in Lagos at the moment in a minute, but just to kind of round off on the Half of a Yellow Sun saga, given how politically controversial the story of the Nigerian Civil War is, I mean, were you at all daunted by that aspect of it, that some might read political meaning into the editorial line that the film took?
I wasn't, and that was because I was incredibly naive. And you also have to remember that in 2006, 2007, when the whole process began, when we started trying to make the film, things were a lot more calm, a lot less divided. In Nigeria. If anything, at the time, nobody actually really talked about the Civil War, about the Biafran War, with the exception of novelists like Chimamanda and Chinua Achebe. It wasn't, and Wole Soyinka, it wasn't something that you found anyone actually writing about. And one of the reasons I wanted to make the film was because I felt that it was important for us to talk about our shared history, our history as a nation, and especially about the traumatic events such as the Biafran War, which we had very conveniently swept under the carpet. I felt it was important for us to talk about them in order to go forward healing. What I didn't anticipate at all was that it was going to come to the fore in ways really that I couldn't imagine. And so, no, I wasn't intimidated. But as soon as we got to Calabar and started trying to make the movie, we were very aware. We were made aware by sometimes quite mysterious forces who tried to make the film not happen. But it did happen in the end, but the controversy continued after it happened. But it's here, it's here to stay.
Well, I mean, you have to be congratulated for making the movie, but just listening to you talk there, I mean, it sounds as though the corners of the picture are almost as interesting as the picture itself, and that I mean, you're a writer, it might be worth doing the making of Half a Yellow Sun sometime in the future, but...
yeah.
Well, I mean, just moving away from the political aspect of it, I mean, that movie, I assume, is the biggest budget movie you've made so far. I mean, you've made several subsequently. Has it been difficult raising that sort of money again with the movies you've made since? I mean, if so, how challenging has it been to make films with a smaller budget?
Well, it hasn't. I mean, the honest truth about Half a Yellow Sun is that even though it cost $10-12 million, I didn't, as a director, as a writer, it wasn't money that I handled. What I was able to do with the money as a director was I was able to get a great cast, and I had a great crew, but all the money went into the making of the movie. It didn't go into salaries. The actors were all working on a favored nation basis. They were basically working for less pay than they would have got if they were involved in a Hollywood film. And I'm a storyteller. It's not every single film, every TV series that I've made so far, I've been quite happy with because it's really about telling stories. And I'm not a producer. Producers go around raising the money, and quite often I talk to a producer. I pitch an idea to a producer, or a producer comes to me, as happened with the film that I've just finished directing, The King's Horsemen, which is based on Wole Soyinka's play Death and the King's Horsemen. I was approached by Mo Abudu of Ebony Life Studios. So yes, so the answer to your question is it's never ever easy to raise money to make a film because films are very expensive. But I haven't gone out trying to look for money to make a movie at a certain budget and not got it, or I've just the films have happened at whatever budget was right for them to happen.
You mentioned the Death and the King's Horsemen. I mean, I don't know if that's the entire, you use that entire title for the movie version, but I understand. I mean, let's talk a little bit about it. I understand it's a period piece set in the colonial era, so that would have come up with its own challenges. It's a play by Wole Soyinka, which is of course well known, the horseman of a Yoruba king, prevented from committing ritual suicide by the colonial authorities in the 1940s. So I guess you've also got an international cast for that.
Yes, I have. We had cast. In the film we have a district officer, an English guy, a resident, and some other English characters. But it's also predominantly Nigerian. So we had some actors from South Africa, some really great actors from South Africa playing the British characters, and for the Horsemen, Eleshoba, we had Odunlade Adekola, an incredibly gifted actor, and several other Nigerian actors. The story is set in 1944, so yes, it's a period movie. But we shot the entire movie, the entire thing, in Lagos.
Right, and I understand it's a Netflix and Ebony Life production, so the movie will presumably premiere on Netflix. Will it, before it hits local cinemas, or is it exclusive to Netflix?
I think my understanding, and I may be wrong, is that it will go out in cinemas first. It would have some kind of limited release. It may go to film festivals, and then it will premiere on Netflix. That's how I understand it, but I may be wrong.
Well, wherever it is, I can't wait to see it. But let's talk a little bit about your background, Biyi. I mean, you were born in northern Nigeria. Is that where you grew up?
Yes, I was born in a small town called Kafanchan, it's in Kaduna State, but it's actually closer to Jos than it is to Kaduna. It's less than an hour's drive from Jos, and I was born there. I grew up there. I left there when I was about 15, but it defined every single aspect of my life. I haven't been there in quite a while, but it's with me all the time.
So you're a true Nigerian, as well as obviously being a true Brit, because I mean, once you become, successful at what you do, the Brits tend to claim you, don't they? But then You moved to the UK. Was that where you became more prolific as a novelist and playwright?
I moved to London in 1990. I went straight from the University of Ife, from Obafemi Awolowo University Ife. But when I was when I arrived in London, I had the manuscript already written of my first novel, which I'd written actually before I went to university. I wrote the first draft of it in Kafanchan when I was about 14, and then I rewrote it in Lagos when I was about 16. And then I went to uni. I couldn't find a publisher for it. But when I arrived in London in 1990, I sent it. I got a book in a bookshop that had a list of publishers. And I just sent it. I photocopied the manuscript. I sent it to, I don't know, 10, 15 publishers. And within a month, maybe 2 months, I had a publisher in the UK. I had a publisher in Italy, in Germany, in France, and in Spain. And that started my career. And shortly after that, I got a phone call from the Royal Court Theatre, which is one of the most important theatres in the UK for young writers. Wole Soyinka started his career there in the late 50s. I got a call from them. The artistic director had read my first novel almost immediately after it was published and liked it. And he got my phone number. He called me and he said, "We would like for you to write a play for us. We understand you have a background in theatre. I'd done a degree in theatre." So I went to the Royal Court, and being at the Royal Court that's where I actually learned to direct actors. So it was as if I'd gone in for a second degree in drama, but this time it wasn't simply the academic side, but about learning even more about writing plays and about directing actors. And it was great.
And I expect a lot of Nigerians probably know you as a movie director, but of course people like myself have known you from the UK first, of course, as a writer. I mean, I read, I think one of the first books of yours that I read in London many years ago was called Brixton Stories, and I think that it was at a reading of that book that I actually first met you. But what's happening to your writing career now? I mean, apart from adapting things to films, are you still writing prolifically? We've got less than a minute, unfortunately, so you've got to be fairly quick.
I am. I have a new novel which is being published in the UK in 2023 by Hamish Hamilton. I'm about to finish writing the book. It's 70%. Hamish Hamilton picked it up on the strength of reading 70% of it, and now I have to finish it. But I am a writer. I'm a filmmaker, but I'm first and foremost a writer.
Well, I have to say that I'm glad that you're both, because I think you're doing terrifically well in both areas. But I wish we had more time, but I know you have to run. But Biyi, I want to thank you very much indeed for joining us today, and the novelist and playwright Biyi Bandele, who's also one of Nigeria's most prominent international filmmakers, talking to me there from Lagos.